My elderly neighbor always knew what I was doing even when my curtains were closed. One day she smiled and said, "I love your new couch." Confused, I asked, "How do you know what my couch looks like?" She just chuckled and walked away. That night, I noticed a small hole in my wall. And when I looked closer, I realized it was a tiny camera lens. Shaking, I followed the wires back to her house, and what I found in her basement made me run straight to the police. Hey Reddit. I've never posted something like this before, but I really need to get it off my chest. This all started about 7 months ago when I moved into a small house in Columbus, Ohio. I'm 35, single, work from home as a software developer. Quiet guy, keep to myself. I bought the place because I needed peace and this neighborhood seemed perfect. Retired folks, quiet nights, no loud kids screaming in the street. Next door lived an older woman, probably around 75 to 80. Her name was Agnes. Hair always pinned up, floral dresses, white porch swing kind of vibe. You'd think she was harmless. She always had cookies or banana bread and smiled like she was your sweet grandma. She introduced herself on day one. Polite, a little nosy, but in that old lady way. You know? At first, I liked having someone nearby who looked out for the neighborhood. She'd wave when I pulled into my driveway or chat when I took out the trash. But then, things got weird. It started with small comments. Little things that didn't feel right. I'd come back from a weekend trip, and the next day she'd say, "Hope the drive back from Cincinnati wasn't too tiring." I never told her I was going. Didn't post it anywhere. My blinds were closed the entire time. I just smiled and nodded, thinking maybe she saw my plates or bags or something. Tried to convince myself it wasn't weird. Then it got worse. One day, I moved my office setup from my spare bedroom to the living room. Got a new desk, new chair, whole thing. 2 days later she said, "Your new setup looks nice, very open now." I laughed it off, but it hit me hard. I hadn't told a single soul. I keep my curtains shut. She should not know that. I started testing things. I left my curtains closed. I stopped talking to her as much. I moved furniture around. And she always knew. Every time. The moment that broke me? I ordered a new couch. Navy blue, L-shaped velvet fabric. Got it delivered on a Monday. Nobody helped. Didn't tell my coworkers. Curtains stayed drawn. Next morning, she was outside tending to her garden. I went out to grab my mail. She looked up and smiled and said, "That navy blue couch really suits your living room. Makes it feel cozier." I felt like the ground fell out beneath me. I just stared at her. Couldn't speak. I finally said, How do you know what my couch looks like?" She just laughed. This slow, weird, wheezy chuckle and said, "Oh, I just know things," and then walked right back inside. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in my living room just staring at the walls, feeling like I was being watched. My eyes kept going back to the wall that faced her house. I got on my hands and knees and looked at every crack and shadow. And I saw it. Down low, just above the baseboard behind a bookshelf, a small hole. Like a pinhole. Almost invisible unless you knew where to look. I used my phone flashlight. It wasn't just a hole. It was a lens. A tiny, black, round lens. I froze. Literally froze. My whole body went cold. This was a camera. A camera hidden in my wall. And it was facing right into my living room. I moved the shelf and gently tugged at the wall paneling. I could see a wire. A thin black one, leading through the wall. It was running straight toward her house. I didn't sleep. I sat there all night just watching the wall like it was about to explode. Next morning, I took off work. I needed to know what was going on. I needed to see it for myself. Around 10 a.m., I walked next door. She wasn't home. Her car wasn't in the driveway. I went around back, and to my shock, her back door was unlocked. I'm not proud of what I did, but I went inside. Her house was old, dusty, smelled like potpourri and mildew. The furniture was from the 60s. Everything was floral. I walked through slowly. Didn't touch anything. Then I found the basement door. It creaked. Of course it creaked. I stood at the top of the stairs for a long time before I finally stepped down. The basement smelled like damp concrete. The air was heavy. I flicked the light switch. That's when I saw it. The entire basement was filled with monitors. At least 10 old computer monitors. Some flat screens, some ancient. All turned on. All showing different rooms of my house. My bedroom. My bathroom. My shower. My kitchen. My living room. Some of the cameras were in vents. Some looked like they were built into my smoke detectors. I almost threw up. There was a long table with notebooks, labeled DVDs, USB drives, printed out photos. She had logs. Logs of what time I showered, what time I left for work, what time I watched TV, what I cooked. There was a photo of me sleeping. From inside my room. My bedroom door had always been closed. There was a drawer of my missing stuff. Socks, pens, receipts, my old toothbrush. Things I thought I just misplaced. She'd been inside my house. More than once. I couldn't even cry. I took photos of everything. I backed out of the house slowly. Didn't touch a single thing. I called the police the second I got home. So, after I found the camera in my wall, the monitors in her basement, the photos, the labeled DVDs, I called the Columbus police. I gave them everything. The photos I took, the location, even the notes she wrote about me. One notebook literally had my daily routine written out with timestamps. They came fast. Within 45 minutes there were 2 cruisers outside her house. I watched from my living room window like a freaking hawk. She still wasn't home. They went inside. I saw them come out maybe 20 minutes later. One of them was holding a hard drive in an evidence bag. They taped up the house. Told me not to speak to anyone about it just yet because it was now an active investigation. I tried asking what else they found. They didn't tell me much. Just said, "You did the right thing calling us." A few hours later, Mrs. Miller came home. I watched her get out of her car with groceries in hand like it was any normal Tuesday. She stopped dead when she saw the police tape. One of the officers, still waiting in an unmarked car, stepped out to talk to her. She didn't act shocked. Didn't yell. Didn't even look surprised. She just smiled. And then she fainted. Just dropped. Like someone unplugged her. The cop caught her before she hit the ground. Paramedics were called. They took her to a nearby hospital for observation. She was apparently too shaken to be questioned right away. The next day, I got a knock on my door. Not the police. Not a neighbor. 2 men in plain clothes. Suits. Looked federal. They flashed badges, said they were with a joint cybercrime task force. They asked if they could come in. Said they needed to ask a few questions about my neighbor. I let them in. They told me straight up Mrs. Agnes Miller wasn't just watching me. She had other feeds from other houses in the area. Not just this neighborhood. All over the city. Somehow she tapped into security cameras, baby monitors, even smart TVs. Her setup was deep. They said her basement had signals bouncing through illegal radio frequencies, repurposed old cable lines, some crap I didn't even understand. Then they showed me something that made me feel sick. They had a photo. It was my house, but taken from across the street. From a second-story window. Same view as one of the houses I thought was empty. "Do you know who lives here?" one of them asked. I said no. That house had been up for sale for months. Nobody ever came or went. The guy nodded. "She owns it." I said, "What?" "No, she lives next door." He said she owns 4 houses on this block. Bought them under different LLCs. She's been setting up long-term surveillance from all angles. That's when it hit me, she hadn't just been spying on me. I was probably just one of many. Maybe just the one she fixated on most. They pulled out a tablet and showed me a screenshot. A room filled with screens. Not from her house. From another building. They said one of the hard drives had GPS logs coordinates. The locations matched up with a storage facility on the edge of the city. Later that night, police raided it. They called me the next day. They found dozens of boxes filled with surveillance tapes. All labeled with names. Addresses. Mine included. But there were other names too. Families, single women, college students. All local. She had been doing this for years. But this wasn't just for her own amusement. No. Some of the footage was being streamed, uploaded, shared, sold. Someone, maybe just her, maybe more, was distributing this stuff online. My footage was part of it. That destroyed me. I hadn't even wrapped my head around the invasion of privacy before this turned into something criminal on another level. It wasn't just creepy grandma with a camera. It was exploitation. It was trafficking of footage. The feds weren't even sure how deep it went yet. They were pulling servers, following money trails, trying to figure out if she was working alone or if she had people helping her. The night after I spoke with the task force, someone tried to break into my house. I was asleep, heard a sound downstairs, a scraping noise. I have a bat by my bed. I grabbed it and crept down, heart pounding. Saw the back window cracked open. They didn't get in, but they tried. Police came again. Said it could have been a coincidence. A random attempt. I don't think it was random. I think someone knows I saw too much. And I think Mrs. Miller wasn't working alone. After the break-in attempt, I was put under protection. The feds were now treating me as a potential witness. They had tapped phones, surveillance on my house, agents checking in every few hours. They said it was precaution, but I knew the truth. I was involved in something much bigger than just a nosy neighbor. Mrs. Agnes Miller was still in the hospital at that time, still unfit for questioning, or so they said. She was playing up the fragile old lady act, even though everyone now knew she wasn't fragile at all. They hadn't charged her yet. They were trying to build a full case first, bring everyone involved down at once. But I couldn't wait. I made a mistake. A big one. I went back into her basement. I know, I shouldn't have. The house was still sealed, still under investigation. But I had this feeling, like there was something else there, something they hadn't found. Maybe I was obsessed. Maybe I was just angry. But I had to know. I still had the back door key from when I first entered. One night around 1 a.m., I snuck over and let myself in. The basement was cold. The air felt wrong down there, like the walls were holding secrets. I looked around for a while, then I noticed the far corner. A wall that looked newer, not painted the same way. The paneling was different. I tapped on it. Hollow. There was something behind it. I grabbed a crowbar from her garage and started pulling at the panel. Behind it, a metal door. Deadbolt lock. Heavy duty. Not connected to the rest of the house's power. I used a magnet to trip the bolt. Dumb luck that it worked. Inside the room was a safe. One of those huge fireproof ones, the kind banks use. And next to it, an old laptop with no internet connection, running a program that was still recording. Recording from new cameras. She hadn't stopped. Even while in the hospital, the system was still running. The footage wasn't of me anymore. It was of other people in the neighborhood, including kids. That's when I snapped. I didn't call the cops. I didn't tell the FBI. I took the laptop, the external hard drives, everything that wasn't bolted down. I drove to the hospital at 3 a.m. and waited in my car. I didn't know what I was going to do, just that I needed her to know I knew everything. I needed her to see my face and feel what I felt: exposed, betrayed, broken. The next morning, I walked straight into her room. She was lying there in bed, tubes in her arms. Oxygen. She looked at me and smiled like nothing had happened. "Oh, Daniel," she said. "You shouldn't be here." I walked right up to her, put the laptop on her tray, opened the screen, and hit play. She watched it for maybe 10 seconds. Then she looked away. "You don't understand," she whispered. I said, "Then explain it to me. Who are you working with? Why do you have this?" And she said, "Because I was watched once. I was hurt once. No one believed me. So I started watching back. And then I couldn't stop. I stared at her, waiting for more, waiting for anything that made sense. But she just closed her eyes. Like that was the end of her story. So I left. I didn't give the laptop to the feds. I gave it to the press. I emailed everything anonymously to 3 big news outlets. I knew I'd get caught. And I did. They traced it back. I was arrested for tampering with evidence. But by then, it didn't matter. Because the truth was out. The story hit national news. Ohio woman ran underground surveillance ring for over a decade. They found out she had former students, men she taught in night classes, who helped her install the systems. She used fake companies to rent homes, plant cameras, collect footage. She sold it on the dark web. People went to jail. Mrs. Miller? She died in custody. Heart attack. A week before her trial. They never found out if she had others still out there doing her work. But I think she did. Some of the footage was too recent after she got sick. I live in a different state now. Changed my name. New job. No more smart devices. No cameras. No microphones. Just windows. And blackout curtains. And yeah, sometimes I still feel like someone's watching me. But maybe that's just who I've become. The guy who trusted the sweet old lady next door. And paid the price.